My mother-in-law secretly DNA tested our daughter and told my husband she isn't his. She has no idea I was SA'd and that we didn't want to know if the baby was my husband's. Trigger warning, SA. My 45 female husband, 48 male, and I have been together for 25 years. We have 3 kids, 8 female, 15 male, and 17 female. My husband and I had a lot of trouble conceiving our daughter. We went through several years with no luck and had seen a fertility doctor who had prescribed some medication to help with ovulation. We couldn't afford IVF, so we were going to try this last thing and then look into adoption. Well, long story short, I was SA'd during a burglary while my husband was out with his brother. It was right when I was to be ovulating. At the hospital I took EC even though I knew it would undo all the hard work, medication, and meant we wouldn't be able to have a baby of our own, but I couldn't risk getting pregnant with my attacker's baby. Well, after a few months I've been feeling off, sick, and down. I figured I was just depressed after the SA and I hadn't been eating. But I soon found out I was pregnant. We were so excited until I went to my appointment and found out I was 15 weeks instead of the 5 or 6 weeks I thought I was. I had been having really irregular spotting and bleeding since the EC, so didn't even imagine I was that far along. My husband and I were devastated because that meant there was so much uncertainty surrounding paternity. We had our ultrasound and as soon as we saw the baby on the screen, I knew I couldn't have an abortion and my husband didn't want to either. We talked and went back and forth about adoption and if the baby didn't end up being his or what we would do, and he said he didn't care about paternity, we just wouldn't find out. We decided to wait until our child was older to tell them and they could decide if they wanted to find out themselves. I will also note at this point my case was unsolved but had been linked to other SAs and murders at the time. A few years ago my attacker was caught and a year ago finally sentenced. At the hearing I spoke and my daughter and son knew about it but I didn't go into details, but they knew I was attacked but only knew it was before they were born. Last Christmas my mother-in-law bought my daughter, and only my daughter, a 23andMe for Christmas. I thought it was extremely weird but didn't think too much of it. Thinking back I don't know why I didn't see it for what it was. My daughter was equally confused and asked if I wanted to do it instead. I'm adopted. I said sure and just gave my daughter an Amazon gift card for the price of the test. My daughter brought it to my attention that my mother-in-law has been overly critical of my daughter in the last few months, commenting on her differences. Saying things like I wonder where those eyes came from, hair, height. She even said to my daughter, I wonder why you're so skinny. My daughter looks exactly like me, the same eye color, same hair color and texture, but she is quite a bit taller than me. I'm 5 feet 8 inches and she's 6 feet. I'm on the heavier side, so is my husband, and my daughter is extremely thin, but she is also an athlete. I've never had any reason to believe from looks alone that she is not my husband's daughter. After my daughter brought it to my attention how my mother-in-law was acting, I spoke with her and she said, oh, she's just being sensitive. This was a couple months ago. A couple nights ago my mother-in-law invited my husband and I out for dinner and told us to leave the kids at home, because she had something important to discuss with us. We went to a restaurant. We're eating and my mother-in-law hands me and my husband 2 separate envelopes. My husband and I both look in the envelope, and they are DNA comparison results. I asked my mother-in-law what it was and she said, the proof that you're the garbage I always knew you were. I was extremely confused. I asked whose DNA she compared, and as I said that I just knew, she said my husband and my daughter. My husband looked at me and he looked so hurt and lost. I'll never get that image out of my head as long as I live. I called her a heartless cunt and my husband and I left. I blocked her number from mine and my kids' phones, but figured my husband needed to make that decision on his own. My husband told me last night my mother-in-law called him and he stopped by her house after work. She was telling my husband she's known for a while and suspected for a very long time, and that she wasn't sure how to approach the topic with him. My husband asked how she knew that. She said she overheard my brother-in-law talking to his wife and heard our daughter may not be his. My mother-in-law took that to mean that I cheated, so she did a DNA test. Last year around the hearing my husband got drunk and ended up mentioning the hearing and some details to my brother-in-law. Apparently that night while sleeping he said, I couldn't protect her, and what if she's not mine? My husband was extremely drunk and did not remember doing this. My mother-in-law does not know that I was SA'd, but she does know there was a break-in and I was attacked. She kept trying to convince my husband to leave me. My husband told her what she did was unforgivable and that he is going to cut her off. My husband is inconsolable. He's so upset he told his mother to piss off and then told her that my attack was actually an SA, and that's who our daughter's biological father is. It still makes me sick to say that. She tried to apologize, but my husband told her he can't forgive her, and not to contact any of us. I told everyone my mother-in-law DNA tested our daughter and we were done with her. I have 7 siblings. 5 think I'm in the right, and the other 2 and my brother-in-law can't believe mother-in-law did that, but understands why because she didn't have the entire story and assumed I wasn't being truthful to my husband. But even if I wasn't, I can't imagine being a parent so concerned with my child's relationship that I would go to those lengths to meddle. Update: yes, we are no contact with my mother-in-law. I haven't talked to her since the dinner and my husband hasn't spoken to her since a couple days after that. She knows I was SA'd, and attempted to apologize to my husband when he last spoke to her, but he basically told her to piss off and he couldn't forgive her. We also had a good relationship up until this point, or so I thought. We hung out and did stuff together. I was just really hurt that she told me at dinner when I asked what the envelope was, that it's proof that you're the trash I always knew you were. Also, my answers and descriptions of what took place are intentionally vague, due to the amount of attention this got. I don't want a single person to know mine or my family's true identity and try to out my daughter's biology to my attacker or his family. If my daughter desires to do that in the future, I want that decision to be wholly hers and not have another decision about her future to be made for her against her will. I'll suffice it to say that he is in prison for life without parole, and I am not the only person he did this to. He also murdered at least one other victim. There are very few articles about this trial because it was a closed trial, and although none of the victims interviewed or are mentioned by name, they do use initials. There is also a slew of other charges he had brought against him as well. People want to know why or how I could have kept a baby knowing the possibility of the attacker being the father. And the answer is that even if I had known definitively that he was the father, my decision probably wouldn't have been different. She is as much a part of me biologically speaking as she is him, and after seeing her move around, I didn't desire an abortion, although it would have been nearly impossible for me to get one anyway where I lived. Although she was conceived in violence, she was raised in love, understanding, and acceptance. She is much more mine and my husband's than my attacker's. All he did was contribute DNA to her, nothing else. He's had no influence or part in her life and likely never will. I know DNA doesn't mean anything in the sense of who she is, but that doesn't diminish the devastation and anger I feel knowing he is responsible for any part of her. I'm honestly not sure why my husband and I were so blindsided, but I feel like you can convince yourself of anything given the right circumstances. Initially, we did feel it was likely the attacker because of the year we went without conceiving, but when I got pregnant with my son pretty soon after my daughter, I know I convinced myself that not only was it a possibility, it was the only likely scenario. It's also not lost on me that the decision to keep her isn't something many people agree with, apparently, according to this post, but I know I made the right decision because my daughter is the most amazing girl and I couldn't imagine my life without her. My daughter is doing well and her relationship with myself and my husband hasn't changed at all. If anything, her relationship with my husband is much better. She makes an effort to spend more time with him and they have many shared interests. My daughter said she isn't upset I didn't tell her, she's upset she had to find out when she wasn't truly ready. She's happy I was able to share such a vulnerable, horrible event with her. My son now knows the specifics and my youngest knows my daughter has a different dad, but not about my SA. People also seem to be concerned with her genetics and how it affects her future health. She already had neonatal testing for genetic disorders. I'm not a carrier of any autosomal recessive disorders, and she has had genetic testing for autosomal dominant ones and was negative. She also has had genetic testing for several different forms of cancer because of my biological family history. Anything else couldn't affect her until adulthood, and they are all almost heavily influenced by lifestyle, so they wouldn't be a concern until she's much older. I'm not sure what else to say, so I'll just once again reiterate how thankful I am for all the support. Edit to add, stop messaging me asking for the story of my essay.